Hello, wonderful people of YouTube. Once again, it is your friend, Wild Elf 26. Hey, you guys are probably wondering, is this a red Link outfit? No, this is me. I'm retouching some cosplays and refreshing a couple other cosplays I had. This will either end up being the basis for a new Inuyasha Fire Rat kimono for Inuyasha, or it'll be the basis for a new Edward Elric red coat. So I'm kind of doing that right now, kind of going through which one, which one it favors better for that, the color, the materials in general. If you have some interesting cosplay ideas or an anime you like or something, go ahead and ask. Just, in fact, I think I'll title this video at some point, Ask Wild Elf. And whether it's game related, retro game related, 90s pop culture, 1980s pop culture, or some kind of cosplay information or questions, go right ahead, ask. That's what the comments are there for. And around 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard, I usually get to my comments about that time, you know, barring that there's nothing else interfering in the middle of the day. So I hope you guys are having a great one. I want to say hey to my friend Slippy GT, Slipstream, Mr. Mods. I want to say hey to Captain Frugal. Hope you and the Frugal family are doing great. And good luck on those Zentai Carnage and Venom suits that we were discussing earlier. Oh, and I also want to throw a hey, how you doing out there to Cap'n Howdy. That's right, folks. Cap'n Howdy, the one that did the live stream recently. What was the game? Oxide. He did a live stream of Oxide. So if you type that in, live stream Oxide or Oxide live stream Captain Howdy, it should pop up somewhere in your recommendations. But anyway, check him out. He's cool. He's commented a few times. And you can find his icon through some of my older videos where he's commented, and find his site through his icon, his thumbnail. But remember, guys, remember to press like and press subscribe. And at some point, I believe the YouTube mechanism will allow the word subscribe to flash while I'm saying the word subscribe. Or if you feel like it, press like. And that should be flashing every time I say press like. And if you feel like it, if the mood shifts you that way, if the stars are in alignment, if the Triforce wills it, share it with a friend, please. Anything helps the channel. This channel is not monetized, unfortunately. I do not have a Patreon account with this channel. Maybe if I start a second channel somewhere down the line, when things are going a bit more well, I can then set things up for such things, but right now they're not. As a result, you'll probably not see a live stream from me. I attempted to do a live stream, and I thought I had crossed all the T's and dotted the I's, and then the day of the live stream, all it shot was a video. Even though I had given the 24-hour notice ahead of time, officially, I thought I had followed all the rules. And it turns out, unless you have went through all the extensive process of getting monetized, YouTube does not allow you to do a live stream. So that is why you will not see a live stream on this channel. For this channel is not monetized. No matter how many subscribers I get, no matter how many views I get, if I win one of those little YouTube placard things for a number of views or something, I will still not be monetized, and I will still not be able to do a live stream. So I apologize for that. It's just a simple state of affairs of what it is, and I really cannot do anything about that at this point. But maybe if I do a second channel later on, and at that point it will be completely optimized, hopefully completely monetized the second channel, and possibly, and I don't like doing it because I consider it a hypocrisy, and I'm going to use that word hypocrisy. In the United States, land of the free, where I'm at, currently I'm here in Central Florida. Most of these states, the people out there, the ones without jobs, the ones without roofs over their heads, starving, in many of these counties, many of these cities, they're not allowed to hold a sign that says they're hungry or anything that's remotely begging. We're in the land of the free, okay? I've had relatives that have died fighting in the wars, you know. Other ones that have survived the wars come back, you know, not the same person they were when they went over. And for all their sacrifice in the land of the free, you're not free, you know, to ask for a few dimes if you need one, you know. You're not free to ask, hey, that's a nice sub sandwich there, could I have half of that, you know. You're not allowed to ask these things in the land of the free. I don't know if the YouTube channel is aware of that. Right now we're going through a dramatic leadership possible change soon. The elections are still unfolding, and it's very strong contention between probably the winner, which will probably be Donald Trump, and Sleepy Joe Biden. That's what they're calling him in the press. So we'll probably, when the elections are said and done, we'll probably have President Trump once again. I'm not saying that that's my wishes or that that's not my wishes. I'm just saying likelihoods with all the news polls, and I keep up on all that. That seems to be the direction it's going to be going in. But all I can say is people don't know this. People visit our country, people immigrate to our country the proper way, officially, through the proper paperwork, through the channels, through the time delay that honest immigrants have to go through. They don't realize that this country, in a short amount of time, a lot of different freedoms have been incurred upon at the state level. Like what's legal and allowed in one state is completely not in another state. You could be jailed even for doing something that's perfectly legal in another state within the same country. And there's something about that has always bugged me. I always thought that was a deterrent to freedoms, to allow people to be jailed for something in one state and be perfectly free in another state for the same occurrence. And we have a thing where they say ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well, a lot of times these laws are passed kind of quickly, and a lot of people don't even know of some of these laws. I myself am not running for office, and I'm so glad I'm not running for office. People would not like the uniform changes that I would affect, and I'm not talking about clothing either. I would want to bring us back to some kind of sensibility again. And there's too many people with their hands in the cookie jar that don't want laws and any kind of authoritarian nature to be even close to sensibility. They want people being locked up for absolutely ridiculous things. They want people to be constantly stressed out because they want the workforce to be basically obedient zombies most of the time. They want you to pay your taxes, and the way they've rigged the tax code, they want you to pay their taxes too. There's another YouTuber who knows their stuff very well on the numbers. This one very intelligent lady, she was going on, God, I wish I could remember her name right now because I'd love to direct some traffic to her. But she was saying, you're not poor, working class Americans, you're not poor, you're being robbed. And she, on many chalkboards, she point for point showed how the system was gypping the working class, what's left of the working class. So the top bananas are getting all the breaks, and everybody else is having to break their back to pay for their breaks. I'm sorry, I don't want to get all political or geosynchronous or whatever. But yeah, these are definitely tense times in the world in general. There's a lot of things going on in the world. And I'm not going to comment on too many things. In fact, one of those laws that they just passed, kind of, you know, half a day, work a day, whatever, affects your ability to speak about a certain culture now, which maybe is a clue as to how deep their fingers go into the government of our country now. So we can still critique and talk shamefully bad about certain cultures in the public eye, but there's this one culture, and I can't mention it because I don't know if I'd be breaking some other rules that have gone by and I don't know they're there yet. But now you can't say certain things, even if they're honest things. If they put a negative light on a certain culture, you can actually do jail time or some kind of fines for it. And right here in the good old land of the free, you know, God bless America, land of the free. Maybe you have some opinions on that too. Maybe you know the culture I'm talking about. And that's sad because I have nothing against that culture, but what's going on overseas at the homeland or the supposed homeland of that culture, you can't even comment on it in our country in a way that puts them to bear for what they're actually doing. You can't name that culture by name and actually give what for about it without some law having been broke. And they claimed this law was done because of a bunch of student protesters that were constantly supporting this other group against this culture. And they claimed this was to quell the student supporter protesters. Last time I checked, protesting in the United States was your inane right as a citizen. Your right to assemble, your right to protest. It's been hindered, it's been neutered by many different political factions within our country at different times. There's people that want to protest our president when he visits or has public ceremonies, but they've been pushed back 3 or 4 blocks away from the actual events and cameras, so their protest is ineffectually nothing, has no bite, has no impact, because they're not allowed to protest within a reasonable distance to the events they wish to protest. I also want to give a shout out, not that he needs one from little old me in my channel, but I want to give a shout out to Russell Brand, who has had better unbiased news reporting commentaries with actual guests that were backing up actual facts on the Russell Brand YouTube channel. So I want to give a shout out to Russell Brand. He's actually been a friend of freedom, a friend of keeping freedoms, and he's a stranger friend from a faraway land that is now in our land, and he's really good. He's the basis of what I consider to be a good immigrant American. Whether or not he has that full immigrant American status yet, I don't know. But yes, I want to give a good shout out to Russell Brand, and I recommend that people go check some of his podcasts from time to time. He has some very interesting content, and it's worth noting. And believe me, wholeheartedly, it's worth noting. Um, but yes, I'm sorry. This is going kind of intense and serious, and that's not the intent of my channel. My channel does promote freedom, though. I'll say that first. You know, red, white, and blue, true and true. This channel does promote freedom, and that's why when there's so many things in the world happening that, and things domestically, they're actually threatening our own domestic freedoms. Yeah, it's stressful. Some of my YouTuber friends are not in this country. I give a big shout out to Spore Hacker. He's a very intelligent man. He does a lot of good writing projects and live videos about certain writing feeds. He knows his stuff. I joke with him. I call him Professor Spore Hacker, but I do believe that he could teach a course in college, or as they say in his area, university. He has the intelligence. He's a very good man, and he has a love for comic books. He is an enterprising fellow. He's actually producing and kind of beginnings of his own comic studio, basically. But he has an interesting book about a warrior called the Jaguar Warrior, and it's worth a good look-see, folks. He may have links to actually being able to purchase these issues, and if you enjoy the artwork, if you enjoy the storyline, I do recommend the Jaguar Warrior through Spore Hacker. And but yeah, Spore Hacker can tell you his opinion of different things going on in the world from his side of it, and he would definitely know the rhythm and feel of his local region, his local area, and I recommend his channel thoroughly to you. But there's some interesting folks throughout the YouTube family, around the world, over the oceans. A friend up in Canada, a YouTuber called Daryl Tsung, also known on his social media as Bushy Stallion. Just for the heck of it, I call him Daryl Lau because he kind of reminds me of Tony Marquez, the man that played Kung Lao in the Mortal Kombat 2 games. You know, the real Mortal Kombat games, the ones that were in an arcade machine and then they came to home versions. Those are the real Mortal Kombat games, folks. All that other stuff that was made for the consoles only, that's not Mortal Kombat. That's a studio that's left over from Mortal Kombat, trying to keep its pay grade, but those are not Mortal Kombat. They are not actors in front of a blue screen. They are not actors being mocapped and blue screened for digital texturing or digital skin. They've done that with MK4 and a side project loosely connected called War Gods. I highly recommend you play War Gods. If you have never heard of it, please play it. I believe that War Gods was the beta done by a separate group at Midway, but it was the beta for a realistic, for a more gruesome, graphic, bloody depiction of a 3D Mortal Kombat 4 beta, without them actually admitting to it. Although many of the actors from Mortal Kombat appear in War Gods. Most famously, Carrie Hoskins, who was Sonya in Mortal Kombat 3. She is Vala in War Gods. And so that's worth noting, worth mentioning, and I recommend it. Play War Gods. The best home version, as far as speed and accuracy, goes to the N64. Secondary version would be the PC version of War Gods, the original CD-ROM for the PC. The shameful award goes to the PlayStation version of War Gods. Midway's War Gods for the PlayStation was terrible because the security programming in that game was so bad, so horrible, that only a few PlayStation machines were actually able to play the game. Other ones were not. It would get up to the Eurocom screen and just stick there and nothing would ever happen. You would have to have the base model, the original PS1, the one that had the RCA jacks in the back of the machine, red, yellow, blue. If your PS1 did not have red, yellow, blue RCA jacks in the back, you could not use War Gods on your PlayStation. You would be sorely disappointed. And there were some other games. There was a couple Squaresoft games that had some compatibility problems if you were not using the original PlayStation 1. And I do mean the original model, not the revisions later where they moved the spindle and the laser, which was on one side, to a different part of the spindle. That was the only difference. You open the lid, that was what was different about it. But there was some coding difference inside as well. And just to be clear, folks, when a company makes a console, and then you see within the lifetime of that console, they've made 4 or 5 different versions of it, it's usually to address customer complaints about some glaring problem it had. And instead of keep repairing everybody's console, they just make a different one that's addressed that problem, so they don't have to pay all these repair costs. Same thing with PS4. You know, there's different versions of the PS4. Why? Because fundamentally the PS4 had an extreme overheating problem, amongst other problems. And to address the overheating, they kept redesigning the machine. I still don't know if they ever got rid of the overheating issue. But, and I wouldn't be able to tell you anything about the Xbox machines because I always considered that a computer company, and I never cared about their platform consoles. I thought they were just trying to double dip, get profit from their PC gaming, profit from the platform market too. So I was never open to Xbox. I never cared about Xbox. And to this day, I still hold that mantra. And from what I understand, they don't care about their own development companies that make games for them. If a game isn't a super bestseller in the first couple months, they just fire everybody and make a new little dev team afterwards and kind of shove in their nose. Saying, yeah, if you don't make it good, you know what happened to the last dev team. Yeah. So, yeah, so I don't think I'll ever be promoting any Xbox or any games that Microsoft did, simply because of that. Even Japan didn't want anything to do with the Xbox when it came out. They were sorely under promoting the Xbox for Japan. And the few that they did sell, they complained about them non-stop. So Xbox originally had this giant Duke controller. Japanese people didn't like the giant controller. They needed something for smaller hands. And so Microsoft finally released a smaller controller for their market. And because that was so noteworthy, even I noticed it and knew about it. Otherwise, like I said, I had no interest in the Xbox machines. I once played on a friend of mine's Xbox. The only thing I'll say to the credit of Xbox was that for a Bluetooth controller, there is zero latency. That thing is connected perfect on Xbox machines. So I'll give them credit where credit's due on that. They have excellent Bluetooth controller. Alright guys, I know I'm rambling, but that's the point of this video. I'm rambling. I'm rambling for you, the good people of YouTube. To keep retro gaming strong and alive. The irony is the breakdowns in finances within the gaming industry is hilarious at that point. And we're not just talking about like Sega or Nintendo or even Sony at this point. I have to go dig out my PS3 pad. But they banked heavy on these DLC content machines, these internet-dependent platform machines, and they lost. The profiteering they thought they were going to make, they did not make. There was extreme lackluster game sales during the quarters from, well, heck, going back to 2022 into 2004. It did not soar as high as these people were hoping. And their practices with these machines, especially companies like Ubisoft, who've been reaching in to your DLC machines and just erasing games at random moments, games you paid good money for, that you downloaded. Well, apparently there was a licensing agreement. Oh, hold on a second. Be right with you guys. Hold on a second. Just want to make sure something. Oh, is this still going? Yes, okay. I think it's going. Either that or I broke up the video. Alright guys, speaking of which, I hope this generates some lively chatter in the comments section. At some point I'll be able to address you guys. I won't be doing live chats, but certain videos, if you start a chain of comments, I will jump in and answer them as best I can. On the regular video comments, I guess they do limit how many times I can answer a person. I don't know. But I will try to answer your comments as best I can, as frequently as I can. And I hope in whatever lands you're in, if you're in Europe, if you're YouTube in Europe, if you're YouTube in Japan, if you're YouTube in Australia, if you're YouTube in Canada, if you're YouTube in Brazil, I reach out to you. By the way, retro gamers in Brazil, big kudos to you guys. South America in general. You guys supported the Sega Master System the longest out of all the countries, and thereby you made available game titles for the Master System that otherwise would never have been available. And even some Genesis games, some exclusive Genesis games. You guys got Duke Nukem 3D for the Genesis. And I'm using the word Genesis. You guys know that machine as the Mega Drive. It was the Mega Drive in Brazil. You guys got Duke Nukem for the Mega Drive in Brazil. It was an official release. It has a window like the window in the Super NES Doom. There's a couple of YouTubers that have console wars. They have console wars. It's always Nintendo versus Sega. They did one a while back. And by the way, they totally ignored my comment on this, and it was valid, and they never got back to me on this. But the guys that do console wars, they were competing the 32X Doom versus the 16-bit SNES Doom. The 16-bit SNES Doom is, like I said, it's 16-bit. The 32X Doom was 32-bit. Granted, it looked like crap, but it was 32-bit, and it sounded like boiled diarrhea. Worst soundtrack I ever heard from a Doom game, with the exception of the Jaguar, which didn't have a soundtrack. So if you're playing the Jaguar Doom, to get the Doom experience, you gotta take your CD album, Metallica Master of Puppets, pop that in, turn that on, and then start playing Jaguar Doom. That way you get actual Doom experience from the soundtrack. And if anybody remembers the song At Doom's Gate, the first level of Doom, you'll know exactly what I mean by the Metallica album Master of Puppets. But yeah, so Console Wars, they competed a 32-bit machine's Doom versus a 16-bit SNES Doom. By the way, the SNES Doom whipped the 32X with the sound. It had a beautiful soundtrack, beautiful sound effects, actually. Everything sounded better, which is remarkable. It just shows you how crappy and not followed through the 32X version was. I owned the 32X. And I will say that, regretfully, I used to own the 32X. And I bought it because of all the hype. You know, oh, you're going to get a better Mortal Kombat. You're going to get a better Doom. They got a deluxe Virtua Racing. And, oh, the best version of Virtua Fighter the home market's ever going to have. You know. And I had some other games too. I had Colibri. You're a Hummingbird. It was a beautiful little game. And yes, I'll describe it as that. It was a beautiful little game. I was very disappointed that Colibri was not released on any other game systems. I think to this day, Colibri, later on, they should have re-released it on the Game Boy Advance. All the beautiful colors of Colibri, the sprites, everything, it just would have been beautiful as a Game Boy Advance game. But they didn't do that. That's sad. We lost out on that. That company lost out. They probably could have made some mega profits pitching that to the Game Boy Advance. But Colibri was exclusive to the 32X. Not that that means much, because it was a terrible machine. It's like if you hired a chimpanzee to take a rather stiff dump on top of your Genesis, you would basically be reliving the 32X experience. And maybe that's harsh, but I don't feel it's harsh enough. So I have to think of something even worse to say about it. But I'll just say the truth. The truth was horrific enough. The 32X was a grand waste of money. Grand waste of money brand new when it came out, debuted. Brand new, grand waste of money for any retro gamer that has a Sega Genesis and is even remotely thinking of getting a 32X add-on to his Genesis in this day and age. Don't. It is the worst waste of money you can possibly make. Some of the games are valuable as collectibles, but let me tell you, as games, for gamers, have no value. Horrible. Horrible. Stay far away from the 32X. The 32X, oh man. You want the 32X equivalent? Have one of your siblings take a diarrhea dump in your backpack. Walk around on a hot day with that backpack. That's your 32X experience. And you know, maybe I'm being too easy on the 32X. I really tell you, there's no bounds, no limits for my hatred of the 32X. It's almost like my hatred for the SNES version of Legend of Zelda. The Legend of Zelda for the SNES was a gross disappointment. Horrible disappointment to me. They gave Link effing pink hair. And I don't use bad words. And by the way, if you look at all my YouTube videos, I'm quite commercial friendly. I do not drop F-bombs or any of that stuff anywhere. But the SNES Legend of Zelda is one of the games that pushes me almost to the brink of letting go with some huge F-bombs and some really nasty words. But yeah, it's terrible. One, this was going to be the first Legend of Zelda to ever be on the 16-bit Super Nintendo. And up until that point, my 16-bit graphics experience fantasy games had been like Altered Beast, you know, Rastan, the arcade game King of Dragons. You know, these are the games that I had seen 16-bit graphics with that had a fantasy game element to them. And so my expectations were up in this kind of level, you know, naturally, 16-bit, going to be a 16-bit Zelda game. And remember, the last Legend of Zelda before this was Zelda 2 on the NES. He had gone side-scrolling, so they had top view overhead for the first Zelda, side view scrolling for the second Zelda, the third Zelda, I believe SNES is either third Zelda or the Game Boy is. The Game Boy one I give a pass on because it was 8-bit graphics. What did we expect from it, right? But this was the Big Daddy. This is the 16-bit graphics Super NES Zelda. And I just come off of Golden Axe and Rastan and a couple other fantasy titles off of Sega Genesis. And they come along and they finally release this SNES. Yes, for the first time, friends, on your SNES, your Super Famicom, whatever it's called in your homeland. The Super Nintendo. And then they make this horrible overhead graphics. Then the tiniest little, where's my effing magnifying glass? It's so small. Small little teeny sprites. You could be watching a 24-inch TV, this game, and the sprites look like they're half the size of a quarter. It was horrible. It was awful. And then I have to sit by, and all these years later, I'm watching retro YouTubers and stuff do their reviews on this game and stuff, and each one of them is like puckering up, just puckering up hard, you know, the biggest kissy face, because they want to clean that Nintendo ass and put that kissy face right up to that sphincter and sucking away, just kissing and sucking that Nintendo sphincter, telling Nintendo how great the Link to the Past was. It wasn't. It was garbage. It was crummy. I had rented the game back in the 90s from a place, magical place. Maybe some of you remember this wonderful, magical place called Blockbuster Video. And I rented it early in that day. And it's like, you know, I'm considering in the week that I'm going to buy this game. But, you know what? I'm going to rent it first. I'm hearing all this good news about it, good hype. And at the time where I was, I didn't see a demo of it running on a machine. They had some other Nintendo games running on a demo at a local Sears. But they didn't have Legend of Zelda running. They had some other ones on it. And so I couldn't firsthand see what it actually looked like there. I have to go based off of screenshots. And screenshots on a box are tricky, because they could be using screenshots from a section of the game. Like let's say there's 5 sections of a game where it, for a moment, switches to an overhead view. But for whatever reason, they choose to use screenshots from that. So it's not an accurate assumption of what the graphics are going to be. It's just what they took the frickin' photographs from at that moment. So I saw screenshots on a box, and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. That portion of the game seems to be overhead. But I wasn't certain if that was the actual regular gameplay experience. I rent this thing. You know, I'm so excited. You know, I've opened up that Blockbuster plastic box that they have the games in, and that Universal box that had sections on it. If you do it this way, you can put a Genesis cartridge in it, but if you slide it this way, it's got the section to hold the SNES cartridges. Dual purpose box. And that in itself was genius, how that company came up with that. And I always felt they were kind of undersung about that. So I'm playing this game, and one, I'm getting these unimpressive little square, little rectangle story screens. Not custom, like rounded screen or nothing. No, they're little basic rectangle screens with some kind of story art with text under it, and it looks like a DOS game. Looks like an early Apple game. You know, these little text window things. This is the intro to the game. This is the part of the game that should be wowing you. They should be throwing some kind of graphic, you know, in your face, we're Nintendo, this is the kind of stuff we can do. And there was none of that. This little stupid Windows story screens, and no custom frame on the windows or nothing, just the basic. And then these just minor texts that pop up, you know, not even stylized text, just basic, look like computer text, you know, just. But this was not a good sign that it looked this simple starting out. And then the actual game itself finally begins, and you're in Link's house, and there's what appears to be a thunderstorm or something. It's nighttime, you know. And then it's an overhead, and there's a tiny, little, freaking tiny damn Link. He's not even grown up. He's like a little tiny kid Link. In Zelda 2, he achieved almost some grown age. He looked like he was full-grown adult. And then suddenly he's a kid Link in Link to the Past. And then the glaring thing, the one thing slapping me in the face that I noticed right away, pink hair. Why the living F does Link have pink hair? The explanation for this, a proper one that makes any sense, was never given. Later on, people at Nintendo said something about, oh, well, pink allows the sprite to stand out more. Actually, no, because a lot of the sprites in the game stand out fine that are not pink. The only thing standing out more about the pink was that it was out of place, that Link was not supposed to be having pink hair. It made absolutely no sense. Nothing in the story even references that he has pink hair. In the Japanese television commercials, the kid dressed like Link isn't given pink hair. It's a good commercial. It also shows us a Master Sword they're using in the actual ad. The kid's holding a Master Sword. He looks like he's about 15, 14. And then they go into this Japanese rap. Looks like a hip-hop dance routine number into itself, which was hilarious. Then he saves Zelda. And Zelda looked a lot different. They changed the Zelda look. In the NES Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 games, she basically had a big, poofy, kind of a reddish pink dress. And she had red hair. In the commercial, the girl playing Zelda, she has dark black hair because she's a Japanese girl, guys, you know. And but in the game she's representing, the actual Zelda in that game has blonde hair. So you have a blonde Princess Zelda, you have pink-haired Link. And the characters in the commercial show them as upper-age teenagers, you know, about the height as adults. But in the game, they're children. They're little children. Zelda might be slightly older than Link. She might be slightly taller. But they have them as children in the SNES. And I will show it again, folks. The SNES version of Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, a game which I despise. I hate that game. I absolutely hate that game. How much do I hate that game? I feel that the CDI Adventure of Link Zelda is more canon, more of a great, it's an extraordinary game in its own right, than the horrible Super NES Legend of Zelda. And I will stand by that, and I don't care what you say. When it regards that version of the Legend of Zelda. Everything else, I do care what you say. Wait a minute. Is he allowed to do that? Yes, I am. Why? Because I make the channel. But I had to get that off my chest, folks. That was truly a horrible game. I don't care how many YouTubers keep praising Link to the Past. It was a horrible game. And now they're going to remake it. There's a HD remake of it to go on the Switch to look like the same awful looking HD remake of Link's Awakening, where they all look like Carrie, the misfit elf from the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer holiday special. Yeah, they've been made all cutesy. They look like those what are those dolls they used to sell all the time. Precious Moments. Yeah, they look like the Precious Moment dolls. Yeah, Legend of Zelda, as inspired by Precious Moment dolls. Yeah, yeah. I don't like the new Link to the Past or the old Link to the Past. I did like the old Link's Awakening and Link's Awakening DX for what it was. It was good. For the limitations of the machine it was on, Game Boy Color. But Link's Awakening on the Switch is just crummy. It's awful. It has a killer intro too. They actually have like an anime intro. You have what looks like a 16 or 18-year-old Link on a boat struggling in a windstorm on a sea, and lightning strikes the mast of the boat, and then you get the game intro starting after that. In the actual game graphics intro. But yeah, the anime part build-up looked cool. Looked almost like we might get a Twilight Princess type graphics for a Link Awakening, and that would have been fantastic. But there's these weird fans within the fan group that half of us want a realistic Link, and the other ones want this little cartoonish, what's that horrible style that Japan loves so much? I hate it. I absolutely hate this one style that people love. They call it chibi. They love chibi. You know what? I love anime. I love a lot of manga, but I hate chibi. I love Sailor Moon. You know which character I can't stand? Chibi-Usa. Cannot stand Chibi-Usa. For anyone else, that's Chibi Usagi, the daughter of Usagi. Oh, spoiler alert! A series came out in 1993, and if you still don't know that Chibi-Usa is Usagi's daughter, well, you've been living under a rock. Sorry. Had to let that off my chest. Boy, I must have a double E chest with all this crap on it, right? Where was I? I digress. Now I'm thinking about boobs, and I'm gonna have to take a moment, folks. Boobs. But I blame the culture, folks. Let's see. But yeah, like I said, Ask Wild Elf. Ask Wild Elf. There's the comment sections, folks. You got a question, you got a cosplay, anime, an old game release, maybe even have a difference of opinion about a game I mentioned. Ask Wild Elf. When it comes to Legend of Zelda Link to the Past, I'm not changing my mind about anything I've said about that game. That game is garbage. It's going to continue to be garbage. I don't care if Miyamoto himself scribbled on it by holding a crayon with his butt cheeks. It's not a good game. It's garbage. Now, it would have been a good game if they slightly removed some of the color and easily transitioned it to an 8-bit NES cartridge. It could have been a late generation release for the original NES. Then it would have been okay. It would have been fine as an NES game. And even then, it would have been met with some half and half reception, like, well, you know, Zelda 2 is side-scrolling, and now we're going back to overhead view. Seems like a step backwards. But to see that come out on the SNES, this was their flagship SNES release, and that's what it looked like. It was garbage. And I was so saddened by that. I did mention that after I rented it early that day, I returned that game the same day. That game did not spend a night over. It left Blockbuster Video. Within hours, it came back to Blockbuster Video. And I had a new resolution not to own it after that. So, On one of my touchscreen devices, somebody had given me a few games in my touchscreen device. One of them was A Link to the Past. And I have not brought myself to delete that game only because one of these days I may have to argue some point about it. And to know that I have it handy to argue that point, that's the only reason. But again, it was just deja vu. It was like renting it all over again. You know, renting the worst piece of sludge and diarrhea carnage you could possibly rent, and expected to smile about it. You know, no, I'm not going to smile about it. Game is garbage in any form. Link to the Past, I will maintain forever, is garbage. And the revival of A Link to the Past as a Switch game, well, that's memory your Switch could better use for better games. Got me so riled up, I'm drinking right out of my soda bottle. I'm hitting the bottle hard, and it's all your fault. No. Nintendo. I don't blame Nintendo. I blame Miyamoto. Why won't they fire Miyamoto? He gave us the chicken foot controller. It's like a controller that was designed by somebody that was on crack. Yeah, a human has 2 hands. Here, let's design a controller that's got 3 handles. Yeah. And that in the motion control Zelda games. Motion control Zelda games. That's something else really on my chest. I gotta get off my chest, is the damn motion control Zelda games. Thank goodness Twilight Princess came out on the GameCube first, because the Wii version, and there are some good Wii games, but the Zelda games on the Wii are not good. I gave them a fair shake. Wii control onlys for Twilight Princess makes Twilight Princess horrible, not fun to play at all. Same goes for Skyward Sword. I bought that game with high hopes. One of the high hopes was that you also could use the classic controller for it. Turned out, no. They force you to use Wii motion controls on Skyward Sword. That's where the Nintendo Switch shines. It's a golden point of the Nintendo Switch. Skyward Sword for the Nintendo Switch can be used just with analog stick and regular controls. Something you weren't allowed to do on the Wii version. So for that reason only, the Nintendo Switch Skyward Sword is a great game. You can actually enjoy Skyward Sword. But motion control only? Oh, it was terrible. There were some other Nintendo Wii games that had great potential and they were ruined by motion control only. I mean, if you're going to make something with motion controls, please have the diligence of awareness to make the option available to also play it with just the gamepad. Consigning people to only motion controls, you deserve a nice warm spot in hell for doing that. And maybe I'm not being harsh enough on that. I really need to be. Okay. Basically, folks, this video is me letting you know what's going on, and you asking Wild Elf about stuff. I'm venting, I'm ranting, I'm just going on a tangent. Every other word in our vocabulary we can think of to describe vent, rant, rage, tangent, soapboxing, you know, if that's a thing. People in Britain know the term soapboxing, where you stand up on your soapbox and announce your protest in a public park. A freedom to this day I believe they still have in Britain. So I promote it, I'm for it, I endorse it. Wild Elf, all about freedoms. But gosh, there were so many games, so many excellent games out there. And I wish I could remember all the titles that were ruined by motion control only graphics. Motion control only controls. The Wii has decent graphics. They were making all these jumps to these newer machines and PS4, PS5. And it's not that the machine has to be capable of some new mind-bending level of graphics. Because in my opinion, the graphics topped off right around the time of the PS3. To me, that was your best graphics possible. Now, maybe the machine didn't have a supreme amount of memory, but as far as realism, and there's different versions of realism. For some people, realism is realistic motion. It moves realistically. For other, it's photorealism. Light, shades, looks like real life, real world. You know, for some that looks sort of real life, sort of real world. Don't you hate it when a game what do you call that? Where they take a body part and then they make it unusually large for the sake of making it a hero. Like you could have someone with muscles in front of a blue screen and different proportions of their body are a certain size. But in some of these realistic games, and I'm going to use one as an exclusive, the Batman games, the Arkham City, Arkham Asylum, Arkham Knight, whatever. Batman himself looks stubby. He's got like a tiny little head. He's got biceps the size of watermelons. I mean, his shoulders are the size of watermelons, and his biceps are too. And he's got a little like pea-sized head. When he takes off his mask or whatever, he doesn't look real. He looks like a 3D construct. He looks like somebody 3D sculpted on a graphics table. The only Batman that looks realistic in 3D is the one that appears in the Injustice games. When you can face Batman versus a Ninja Turtle. By the way, Ninja Turtles guest starring in the Injustice games, they've never looked better. That's the best looking Ninja Turtle you are likely ever to see in a 3D representation. So if you haven't seen that, I recommend you type that into Google or type that into YouTube search. Look for someone showing Ninja Turtles in Injustice. And that is the best representation of a three-dimensional created Ninja Turtle you will ever see. And I was there for the first Turtles, the black and white comics, the original cartoon when it came out long ago, when Master Splinter was a ninja master turned into a rat in the cartoon. And April O'Neil was a red-headed Irish reporter with a rockin' body and giant boobs, almost, well, I'm not going to go into that because I'm going to be staring off into the space there because I'm thinking about April's boobs. But, yeah, she was the proper April O'Neil. I think NECA released the April O'Neil, the cartoon figure. And let me tell you, it's not the cartoon figure from the TMNT cartoon from the 2000s or any of the ridiculous stuff associated with Michael Bay or even worse, the Seth Rogen ones. Oh God, what were they thinking? They allowed that guy to mess with that? Oh. But, yeah, I don't know what was going on with that. But, you know, when the creators of the Turtles basically split apart as a creative team, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, they split apart, went their own ways, sold off various personal interests in the Turtles to different companies. The Turtles really suffered for it. They really did. Nickelodeon owns the majority rights to Ninja Turtles. As far as I know, they still are the primary owners of it now. But, yeah, I think I think the Turtles peaked around that early 2000s animated show, and after that, it was all downhill. They did a 3D series that Nickelodeon did. It didn't look right. They gave the Turtles club feet at their bottom feet were club shaped. Instead of the 2 toes that we've all known that they have at the bottom, you know, their feet have 2 toes. They've had them all the way up until that 3D series. Then the club feet, they got like 4 toes down there. They still got the hands that are like 2 fingers and a thumb, but yeah, 2 fingers and a thumb. By the way, I saw a pair of winter gloves that split your hands into 2 fingers and a thumb, and they had like a red strap across part of the winter glove, and I thought, hey, Raphael dropped his gloves. But but the Nickelodeon 3D designs didn't look right. They did at least get one of the original turtle voices, but they made him do the voice of the wrong turtle. They got the original cartoon turtle voice, the awesome cartoon turtle voice of Raphael. I believe that's a gentleman by the name of Paul Dobson. And the Nickelodeon people, they rehired him to voice act a turtle, but this time it was Donatello. And you guys are like, oh, that's kind of odd, and I would agree with you. Hold on a minute. I have that Donatello somewhere. That's right, I bought one of the 3D turtle effigies. Yeah, Donatello. They have Paul Dobson does the voice of the Nickelodeon Donatello. And for some reason they have him with a chipped tooth, and they never seem to explain in that series why the Donatello has a chipped tooth. But it's a different reinterpretation of the Ninja Turtles. This video is really long by now, so I'm going to cut it